Genesis 1.
The beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day.
Let's stop here and set the stage for appreciating creation. What is time? We now know that time is relative and that we live in a 3D world, like a slideshow, where everything we view happened in the past, even if it's just by a sliver. It's like there's rules in place that we can't yet break. Even the collider at CERN grows closer to one of these limits, the speed of light, but never reaches it entirely. As temperature approaches 0 Kelvin, matter begins to flatten out and become uniform. Perhaps the breath of God is the heat, energy, and vibration that speaks us up out of nothing. But when we talk about the 6 days of creation, the word Moses used was yom, which means day as we know it. Did the earth sit formless and empty for billions of years before God called forth the light on the first day? Some canyons we used to think took eons to form. We've learned they happened all at once due to plate shifting. So what are your thoughts on time? And what of our Creator, who is entirely outside of time? For God, past, present, and future are all at once. There are many examples in Scripture that demonstrate that time is not what we think it is. I'll refer to Hebrews 4.
Please pay attention to the tenses in this passage. Now we who have believed enter that rest, just as God had said, quote, "So I declared on oath in my anger, they shall never enter my rest," quote. And yet his works have been finished since the creation of the world. For somewhere he has spoken about the seventh day in these words, "On the seventh day, God rested," past tense, "from all his works." And again in the passage above he says, "They shall never enter my rest." So he's saying they shall never enter a work that he has already finished. Therefore, since it still remains for some to enter that rest, and since those who formerly had the good news proclaimed to them did not go in because of their disobedience, God again set a certain day, calling it today. So he set today in the past. This he did when a long time later he spoke through David, as in the passage already quoted. Today, which he already declared in the past for us, if you hear his voice today, do not harden your hearts. So he's talking about a completed work, the seventh day of rest, which for God is completed. This is his rest. It's done. The seventh day is done. Yet by Scripture it says that we still have time to come into his rest. I think that's really interesting. I think that maybe we are stuck working through a story that God has already written. And God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seeds according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night. And let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day. As you can see, I've got a cat behind me on the chair. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living and moving thing with which the water teems, according to their kinds, and winged birds according to its kind. and God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning the 5th day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them.
What does likeness mean? Likeness can mean that there is something physically similar, but it can also have to do with more intangible ideas. When my cat falls asleep on his back on the covers on the bed, which he often does, I can say that he's sleeping in the likeness of a person. Strangely enough, some of the best advancements we have in the technical world are the chips that can meld with human neurons, or the robots that can walk upright like we do. Gotta admit the human being is a hell of a design. Or perhaps it's our empathy and our great ability to both create and destroy with our hands at our own will. Perhaps that is how we fulfill the likeness of God, who also creates and destroys. Who, like us, can look at something we've created and see whether or not it's good. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, and all the creatures that move on the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. Another thing I want to point out here is that it says, "I give every green plant for food." Now this hits me hard because I love to eat meat. Ever since I have a memory, I've eaten meat. So this is tough for me. I eat meat every day. But upon reading this, I know that later in the scripture, God says something that sounds kind of like frustration. And he says, "Fine, I'll let you eat meat." Even though God might have later excused it, I'm going to take steps to at least reduce the amount of meat I eat. There's no reason that I can't have a couple deathless meals throughout the week. There's some people who say that fangs sprung forth from all the animals when man caused the fall of creation. I don't know if I believe that. It doesn't say that fangs sprang forth in the scripture, but there are a lot of animals today that have fangs that don't eat meat. The camels are one. But it is pretty clear here that the original format was that we eat plants. So vegetarians win on this one. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the 6th day. So wherever you are in life right now, whatever time you're at right now, please understand that you have inherent worth. No matter how you're feeling, you have worth. If you're at a point in your life where you feel helpless or worthless, it will pass. It does not feel like it will right now, but it will pass. If you're thinking that you're worthless, if you're thinking about something like suicide, you've got to remember that there are people out there that you have not met yet that are going to need you. So stick around for them.